The Dallas Cowboys take on the Washington Commanders in Week 12. We'll tell you what we are watching in this matchup next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And we are previewing this Week 12 matchup between the Cowboys and the Commanders. Listen, we know that the Cowboys aren't in playoff contention. They're not going to win the division. But what are you looking forward to watching on the offensive side of the ball in this game for the Cowboys, Landon, other than Daniel Jones? Oh, wait, not Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, Cooper Rush.
Oh, man. Well, listen, he's already on the roster, as we've all discovered. So, I think, it's the same kind of conversation that we've been having these last few weeks. It's about seeing what these young players on offense can do. Obviously, you still have your two young offensive linemen, that rookie offensive linemen that you're trying to see develop. This week, it's another test, right? You've got some other young defensive players that they're going to go up against. BB is going to have a face full of Newton, and I think you're going to see some Dorrance Armstrong and Guyton matchups, and maybe some. Is Klein Farrell playing? I didn't actually get to see.
He went from limited to DNP on Thursday, so I got a feeling probably he's not.
So it's just, again, kind of getting more opportunities to see these young guys play. I think the unfortunate thing, obviously, is that you're missing your two guards. Obviously, not just unfortunate because you want them in order to play better. But again, like, what we're looking for here is to see some continuity with this offensive line, some consistency. So it's not great that Tyler Guyton's coming back and not getting more snaps with Tyler Smith. And frankly, it's not great for BB on two fronts, having to deal with two backup guards on either side and not getting the normal kind of veteran presence that he's used to. So
I also want to add in
those guys too. I was just going to throw that in.
Yeah, I was going to add in that our guy David Harrison from Locked On Commanders shot me a text yesterday. Hey, who's starting with the offensive line? And I could hear like the giggles in his voice when he was telling me this. So
rude.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that. Lynn, I honestly don't know who's going to be starting at guard. Like I would assume TJ Bass at right guard, and then left guard is Hoffman.
I think that I gotta believe that they're probably gonna throw in, either Hoffman or Austin Richards there. Like those would be the two other names I would think. But yeah, I would say TJ Bass is gonna be one of those two guys, right? And then is it a move BB over to guard and then Hoffman playing center situation? Is it a BB staying at center and Hoffman at guard? Or is it Austin Richards coming in and playing left guard? I don't really know yet, and I think that's gonna be, I think the Cowboys are probably intentionally being vague about that as well, just to kind of keep things guessing up until game time.
I hope it's Richards, by the way, because I would like to see, hey, could Richards end up being either somebody that you could rely on as a starter next year, or is he somebody that could be, your utility first guy off the bench? And that's a big role, obviously, for this team. So, I would like to see him have that opportunity. Having said that, your offensive line is going to be in rough shape in this game. I feel bad for Cooper Rush.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, now you've only got the young guys and Terrence Steele, right? And so, and Steele, let's face it, has been the worst of our veterans. I don't think he's been as terrible as it's been pronounced, but it hasn't been his best season, and he certainly hasn't been a standout, I would say, this year. So, I do think that that's the really difficult part about this game is that, if you wanted any kind of opportunity to potentially try to pull out a win here, you really needed to kind of provide Cooper Rush a situation in which he could play a more balanced game, right, within the offense. I think that's going to be very tough to do with two backup guards and two rookie offensive linemen. So, that single fact alone that you're missing your two starting guards that are both, all pro caliber folks, it's an albatross to your offense, to say the least.
Another thing that I'm watching are the two young tight ends, Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spanford. Jake
Mhm.
Ferguson is not going to play in this game as he deals with a concussion. I got to believe that there's a good chance that he doesn't play on Thursday either, considering how quick of a turnaround that is. Now, Schoonmaker played 45 snaps on Monday night. Spanford played 42 snaps. And honestly, I thought both those guys played
They do.
pretty well. So I think this is a big opportunity, certainly for Schoonmaker, who has had a rough second year. Like, hey, go in there, show that you can be a starting caliber tight end. I think this is a big spot for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, I mean, I think he did well with his opportunities in the last game, as did Brevin Spanford. So yeah, I think more opportunity. And look, for all the reasons that we just mentioned, there's a good chance that they're going to both get a lot of play, right? Because you may want to just kind of load up and be a sort of a bigger, offense and try to, again, force a run game on these guys in order to just give at least I don't want to see Cooper Rush throwing the ball 50 more times in this game, right? Like, so I think if you get the tight ends on the field, maybe you can find some ways to run on the edge on these guys, and just hope that you can get some angles and bust a big play and allow you to continue to play a little bit more balanced football, not constantly Cooper Rush out of the shotgun, in obvious passing situations and allowing Washington to pin back their ears. As we all know, that's exactly what Dan Quinn wants his defense to be able to do.
Yeah, I would also mention, as for the receivers, CeeDee Lamb missed practice on Wednesday
Yeah.
and Thursday. We haven't really gotten any word whether he's going to play or not. I think even if he does, you're probably going to see more snaps for Ryan Flournoy,
Yep.
maybe Jonathan Mingo. It's going to be really hard to get those receivers the ball considering the state of your offensive line. But
Yeah.
of those young receivers, which one can make some plays? Last week it was Kevontae Turpin, and we didn't really talk about Flournoy. Had a pretty unbelievable play last week that
Yes, he
nobody
did.
really talked about. I just want to see, like, is there anybody that can stand out in that group outside of CeeDee Lamb?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that both Flournoy, and Mingo are folks that if you get the ball on short routes, they're bigger guys that can break some tackles if you need them to. So I do think that there are ways to get those guys the football, and obviously they they may have no other option, especially it looks like Brandon Cooks I think was practicing this week, but I don't know if I think he's going to play. We'll see.
I would give him a couple more days. Again, with Thanksgiving
With the
coming up,
scheduling, yeah.
yeah, you might as well just
In this, like, 3 games in 11-day schedule, it's like anybody who's coming back from injury, it does seem to show that they're like, let's get them through the first part of this and then have them on the third game, right? It does feel like that's something in the past that they have done, right?
which,
They're
like,
like,
I think might happen for, like, Martian Nealon as
I
well.
was just gonna say, Nealon was
Yeah.
the other guy that had a similar practice schedule this week. He's coming off of the IR, had a limited practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I would imagine that both of these guys are probably not quite making it to the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, I think, but I do think that goes back to what you're saying, that the Cowboys are going to have to lean on some of these younger receivers again, because they're not going to have Cooks. Even if they do have CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be, compromised to a certain degree. You don't want to kill him because you do have another one of these games you have to play on Thursday. So, I do think that you're going to see the ball get spread around quite a bit, as it was last game, honestly. Cooper did a good job of that.
So I want to talk about the defense, the 31st ranked scoring defense. I actually feel way better about going into this game than their offense, which just shows you where we're at as a team.
Yeah.
Let's talk about whether the Cowboys can slow down Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. I just want to take a quick moment to shout out a couple of my teachers from high school, from college, David Bona, Jim Coase. They did a fantastic job of helping me pursue the career that I'm in now. I can't thank them enough. And this month is all about gratitude. And along with the people that I just mentioned, there's another person that we don't thank enough in our lives, and that's ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't always easy. But here is a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online, It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked on. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. I absolutely love Game Time. It is the only ticketing app that I use when I want to go see my favorite teams play. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. They have so many great features on the app, but one of my favorites is that you're going to get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. So maybe you want to make sure you're sitting close so that when a blizzard comes in off of Lake Erie, you know that you're still going to be able to see the players on the field. I don't know what game I'm specifically referencing, Landon, but you want to make sure that you have good seats when you go to these games. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are previewing the Week 12 matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. And let's talk about the Cowboys defense, because I thought for the most part early in this game against Houston, they did a good job of slowing down Houston. And now with potentially Deron Bland coming back, potentially Marshawn Nealon coming back, I do have some confidence that this might be a game that the Cowboys can make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to argue that in the same way that losing pass rushers at a rate that you were the same rate that you were losing cornerbacks, it like exponentially hollows out your defense, right? Because now you have no means to kind of stop the pass. Like you sometimes when you lose a corner, you can hope to lean on your pass rush to kind of make things hurried and kind of get the ball out quickly, and then vice versa. But when you start losing guys on both sides at the same time, it really depletes, like I said, at an exponential rate, your ability to stop the pass. You add that into the fact that the Cowboys really couldn't stop the run in the early part of the season, just did not have a plan for that and did not have any answers. I think what's happening here is that all those things at once are all now getting better, right? Like the pass defense is becoming exponentially better because, like you mentioned, you're going to get Nealon back. You got Parsons back a few weeks ago. He immediately had 2 sacks the first week he comes back. You're getting Bland back. I mean, you're getting
Jordan Lewis back this week. Who did not
Jordan Lewis back this week. He didn't have last week. So this may be the first week that you've had your starting 3 corners out there the first time, right? I mean, it will be if Bland gets out there.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the potential for Nealon to get back. So and then on top of all that, this is all going on while it seems like, and I'm going to very much knock on wood, that the Cowboys run defense has taken a step. Not a good, they're not even at halfway as far as run defense in the league, but they're getting their way out of the basement, not becoming a laughingstock. I think Mozzie Smith has played some of his best football these last few weeks. Oso Digizua, who we all expected to be a breakout player this year, he struggled earlier. I feel like he's playing a whole lot better football this year. Obviously, Overshown is starting to rise. So I think as you're seeing the run defense kind of figure some things out, you're seeing the pass defense get a little bit healthier. And I think all of that is lifting the tide on this Cowboys defense in a way that, we're not quite looking at a top 10, top 12 defense yet, but I think it's something that you can rely on, or at least hope you can rely on, to maybe get a stop when you need it, or maybe even, hope against hope, get a turnover here or there. So I do think that as the season has gone on, as Dak gets hurt, it feels like the kind of, the trending lines of the offense and the defense have now crossed, and that the defense is actually probably the more reliable of the 2 units as it stands right now.
I would also mention that one of the concerns that David Harrison had was that the Commanders are not overly creative with Terry McLaurin. He lines up kind of on the same side every single time. And that has historically been a matchup that Trayvon Diggs has performed well in. And one of the issues that the Commanders have had in the last couple of weeks and why their offense has fallen off is that they've been having to rely on the players like Noah Brown, Zach Ertz, and they've dropped a ton of passes in this game. So if you can get Bland back healthy, Jordan Lewis is healthy, I do like the matchups that they're going to potentially have. It's just going to come down to, can you stop the run? Can you stop Jaden Daniels from crushing you on RPOs and read options? But I do feel like this is a game that the Cowboys should have a better chance to survive.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a fighting chance better than, especially on that side of the ball, they're going to have a better chance than I think a lot of the national media is going to give them credit for. I don't know if it's enough to win. Certainly, probably not. But I do think it's going to be a much more balanced fight on that side of the ball than a lot of folks are giving them credit for.
The only thing is, will the defense wear down if the offense can't sustain drives at all? Because I think that could happen. And I could see Washington having a bunch of short fields, and maybe they only have to go 45 yards to get touchdowns, 50 yards to get touchdowns, and then it looks a lot worse than it is. But this is one of the weeks I expect the Cowboys defense to play, I don't want to say well, but better than what we're used to seeing.
Let's frame it this way. This is one of the first weeks where I feel like it's fair to expect the Cowboys defense to hold up their end, right?
Yes,
I don't know that the Cowboys offense can hold up their end, and I don't know the complementary football thing. It has to work to win, but I don't know that it will. But as in past weeks, we've been talking about the Cowboys offense has got to score points because this defense can't do it. I think that has flipped now. The Cowboys defense needs to get a couple turnovers so they can help this Cowboys offense.
And I want to say, assuming Bland plays, he's going to be rusty. There's no doubt, but it's hard. It's going to be hard for us to come up with excuses for this defense if they get shredded in this game. I mean, I know it's a shorter week, but still, this is going to be as healthy as you are going to be probably all season, Landon. Probably. You've got to find ways to get some stops, create some turnovers. You would think that Overshown would be a good matchup with Jaden Daniels because of his speed. And I just want to see, even if they lose and even if they give up 26, 27 points, whatever, I just want to see this defense play really well for a couple quarters in a row to get me excited maybe about their long-term potential.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly can't feel like, I mean, I hinted at this earlier. It's a Cliff Kingsbury offense, and we are in November, late November. So it certainly isn't going to be unpredictable, right? Like, we've gotten a whole bunch of tape, and Kingsbury's not exactly known for making a ton of adjustments at the end of the year. That 76% number I think you quoted, or whatever it was, of the amount of time that you see Terry McLaurin lined up on the left-hand side, that is a trend that has gone back with Kingsbury since he was head coach at Arizona, and he was doing the same thing with DeAndre Hopkins and all the way back into Texas Tech and all. This is something that he does. So, and this is the issue I think with some of his offenses at the end of the year is that they become a little bit stale, they become a little bit predictable. The Commanders have done a really good job of playing to Jaden Daniels' strengths, right? I think these last few weeks, he's been injured. I think that is certainly part of it. But guess what? Like, all these guys are injured. Everybody's injured all this week. That's the NFL. I think it's been more that defenses have started to figure out a little bit how to defend this offense and this quarterback a little bit better. So I think if the Cowboys can force the issue and kind of play the same sort of make them earn it defense that Philadelphia had a lot of success with, I think that you can limit Jaden Daniels. Now, again, limit Jaden Daniels more than the Cowboys offense will self-limit. I don't know. We'll see. That'll come up in the next segment.
Did you see Jerry Jones's quotes on Cliff Kingsbury this week?
I did not, actually.
Very complimentary of Cliff Kingsbury. Says that he was a really good head coach, super creative. He does a lot of unconventional things. He said that he's a very, very good coach in our league.
I would think that after hiring Mike McCarthy, he wouldn't be so susceptible to coach handsomeness. That's like. I love you, Mike. I mean, listen,
listen.
That's safe. It's safe for me to say something like that.
Do you think Cliff gets an interview this offseason with Dallas?
He's going to get interviews, for sure. And I just am hoping that he doesn't qualify for the kind of things that are disqualifying good coaches, inexperience that Jerry wants, that sort of thing. So We'll
So
see.
our short list of coaches, we've got our Deion Sanders, Jason Witten, and Cliff Kingsbury. It's going to be a great offseason.
No, it's Bill Belichick's on that list too. Come on,
and Bill Belichick. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. All right. Let's make some Week 12 predictions for the Cowboys and the Commanders. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We've got an unbelievable slate of games this week. We've got Eagles and the Rams on Sunday Night Football. We've got a cool game between the Packers and the 49ers on Sunday afternoon. And then Monday night, we get the Harbaugh brothers going up against each other. Ravens, Chargers. Should be a lot of fun. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcast. We also want to tell you about a new promotion here for the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We've got you covered every single day, 5 shows a week. But now we have the Locked On Cowboys postcast right here on the Locked On Cowboys podcast feed, as well as the Locked On Sports Dallas YouTube channel. What that means for you is that as soon as the game is over, you're going to get a podcast breaking down the game from Jeff Biggs. It's going to go right into the Locked On Cowboys podcast feed. There'll be a different logo, so you know it's that one. And then Landon and I will break down the game later on that night or the next morning. And again, if you want to watch the video, it is going to be available on the Locked On Sports Dallas YouTube channel. Just more content, keeping you up to date with your Dallas Cowboys. All right, Landon, let's break down this game. Commanders, Cowboys. Who do you see winning?
Yeah, it's hard not to pick the Commanders. I mean, it's the Cowboys are in a compromised state as they have been for most of the season. They are getting healthier in some spots, but unfortunately, it's as I said, a couple different venues at this point, the health situation feels like 1 step forward, 2 step back at times, right? You get a couple guys back potentially in Bland, maybe Nealand and Cooks in either this game or the next. You lose Zach Martin, you lose Tyler Smith. So I do think that that is going to have an impact on the Cowboys' ability to obviously score points, move the ball. And I think, we talked about the fact that the Cowboys are going to need to play complementary football in order to be in this game. They're playing with the backup quarterback. The Commanders are one of the better teams in the NFL. We have to say that. Yeah, and they're coming off of 10 days rest. The Cowboys are on a short week with a beat up team that isn't as talented as it's currently constructed as the Commanders is. So it's going to take some balls bouncing the correct way. It's going to take some keep away if they can muster it, if they can try to run the ball and find a way to continue to move the ball on the ground. And it's going to take some potential turnovers by the defense. The defense is really going to have to help this offense to kind of get over it. But it's a lot to ask from a team that hasn't really done it and hasn't really been a team that finds a way to win, to be honest. So I'm going to pick the Commanders. I think it's probably going to end up with a pretty large margin of victory, but I don't imagine that it's not. I imagine that it's actually a close game.
Kind of like the way the Houston game was last week.
Exactly.
Right?
Where maybe not. I'm not going to pick quite as large a margin of victory for the Commanders. I'm going to pick, let's say 28-17. Right? Yeah. Like I think that they'll probably get a late touchdown. They'll probably be trailing for 4 points for most of the game, and Washington scores near the end as Dallas overpresses to try to get ahead. So that's what I'm going with.
I tend to agree with you. I will say division games are weird. I think a perfect example is like what we saw last night between the Browns and the Steelers. The Browns were down.
Or couldn't see last night.
Or you couldn't see depending on where you were. Yeah. They were down like their 3rd string left tackle. They were beat up all across the defensive line. and yet they win these games because these teams just know each other so well.
Yeah.
And with Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn knowing each other well, they know the personnel well. And there's 18,000 Cowboys on that Commanders roster right now. I'm not predicting the Cowboys are going to win, but you just never know in these divisional games. I think if Zach Martin and Tyler Smith were fully healthy, I think this might be a game the Cowboys could steal. I really do.
Yeah, I do.
I have some real concerns about how they're going to be able to move the ball without those guys. So I'm going to pick the Commanders. I'm going to say 27-10. But again, I think a lot of it's going to be like, hey, it's 20-10 going into the fourth quarter and Dallas has the ball. Something like that. We'll see. Division games are strange. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we shouldn't also discount the fact, again, maybe a little bit to the Cowboys side that Jaden Daniels is still a rookie, right? And he hasn't gone through a lot of alternate, week schedules. This is a long time off. This is not a bye. He hasn't had his bye week yet. They have it, I think, in 2 weeks, right? So he hasn't really gone through that kind of disruption of the rhythm of the schedule. So maybe that has an effect on, he's been off for a little while. And again, he's dealing with a hurt rib or an injured rib and a hurt hand. So maybe that has an effect on him early in the game. And maybe that's enough to the Cowboys to kind of get a foothold and at least make this game interesting. But we'll see how that all plays out.
And one last note before we go, John Machado just tweeted out that CeeDee Lamb did practice today and he's fully expected to play. So that helps. We saw last week, like CeeDee can be really explosive, even if the quarterback play is not very good. So I don't want to say it's going to be a fun game to watch because there's been nothing fun about this Cowboys team this year, but we should learn a lot, especially about that defense and how they handle Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels. We'll break it all down on Monday. Make sure that you download the Locked On Cowboys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. Enjoy the game. We'll see you right back here on Monday.